Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. Republicans were shocked and disappointed that the expected red wave in the Senate didn't come. So what went wrong? Various people have different interpretations of this. Some Republicans believe that it was the party itself that went wrong, while others believe it was the mail-in ballots that caused the unpredictability of the election results. If we look beyond the partisanship, we can also see the deeper reasons. But what we expected the Republicans to do when they came to power was we expected them to lead the return of conservative forces and traditional values in America without being compromised. In fact, the far-left forces did take a heavy hit last week, including the second biggest moneymaker of the Democratic Party, which suddenly went bankrupt. Okay, let's get into it. Democrats apparently won the re-election of Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto in Nevada on Saturday night. This lets the Democrats take the lead in the race for the U.S. Senate, where Democrats hold 50 seats to 49 seats for Republicans so far. The result is incredible, and it's not very believable. Masto's challenger, former Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt, led the polls, and he had a good Election Day turnout. On Thursday, Adam Laxalt told Tucker Carlson that his opponent did not have a valid path to victory. He said, "She does not have the amount of votes left to be able to catch us. She would have to win over 63%. But strange things happened. His opponent got exactly 63% of those remaining 84,000 votes 2 days later, and she apparently won the race. With Masto's victory, and with Democratic Senator Mark Kelly's victory in Arizona on Friday night, the mainstream media says that Democrats will have control of 50 Senate seats. The last seat that is yet to be elected is the Georgia seat. Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and his Republican challenger, former football star Herschel Walker, will decide the winner in Georgia in the December 6th runoff. But even if Walker wins, it will only maintain the current Republican vote count in the Senate, according to what is being reported so far. Control of the House of Representatives is also still being determined, while the final vote counts have yet to be released in many districts, mainly in the western states. Rick Scott of the Republican Party thinks these reported results are because the Republicans didn't give enough positive messages. So he thinks that not enough voters who should have come out to vote came out. Or was it that the tabulators were broken? U.S. Senate Republican campaign chief Rick Scott said on Friday, November 11th, that the results of the 2022 midterm elections have left Republicans completely disappointed. He reflected that Republicans should have come up with a better plan for their vision of the future. But is this the real reason? On Fox News, host Sean Hannity interviewed Scott about the midterm election results, and he challenged pre-election claims that Republicans would win a majority victory in 2022. Scott replied, "Here's the thing about our situation. On Election Day, our voters didn't show up. We didn't get enough voters. It's a totally disappointing situation, but did the voters really not show up?" Scott noted that while Republican candidates have been outspoken in their criticism of the Biden administration, the party has not been effective in providing a positive vision for voters. Scott said, "I think we have to reflect on that now. What's not happening? I don't think we have enough positive messages. We've said it all about how bad Biden's agenda is. It's bad. The Democrats are radical, but we have to have the plan that we advocate." But the election results are not yet fully available, though. And according to the available vote count, it looks like the Democrats would retain control of the Senate if they keep all 50 seats. While in the House of Representatives, the Republicans do have a narrow lead. Scott has signed a letter with Senators Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and Mike Lee of Utah requesting that the vote to elect Senate leadership be postponed until after the Georgia runoff. Texas U.S. Senator Ted Cruz also said that he agreed to delay the vote until after the Georgia election. So, is Rick Scott's assertion that not enough Republican voters came out to vote accurate? The Cook Political Report ballot record table shows that the Republican vote in the House of Representatives as of Thursday totaled 50.7 million, which is nearly 6 million more than the Democratic vote. One thing worth noting is that more than 40 million Americans voted by mail this year, which means that about 40% of voters did not go to the polls in person. They apparently used a mail-in ballot. This is very interesting. Previously, mail-in ballots, also known as absentee ballots, were only available under strict conditions. This is because it's a much easier tool to use to cheat than voting in person. Since the COVID-19 virus pandemic in 2020, the Democrats have used this as an excuse to push the use of mail-in ballots very hard. In the 2020 election, it was the first time that they were used on a large scale, and we all know how that turned out. There are millions more mail-in ballots this year than there were in 2020, especially in key swing states. For example, in Pennsylvania, based on unofficial tallies available, in the Fetterman-Oz race, as of November 9th, Oz drew 500,000 more voters to visit the polls on Election Day than Fetterman did. But that margin was offset by the magical mail-in ballots. Fetterman's mail-in total exceeded 868,000. This is quadruple the amount of Oz's total in that column. The results on paper show that there is a 655,000 vote difference in Fetterman's favor. Former federal House Speaker Newt Gingrich sees a deeper problem behind the election. Gingrich had believed that his party would take back full control of both chambers. So far, he doesn't know how to explain the failures that occurred. 73% of Americans are unhappy with the status quo, yet the voting results show far less than 73%. Isn't that strange? Gingrich has been in politics for decades, and he has never had an election that confused him as much as the 2022 midterm elections. He said, "It makes me challenge every model I'm aware of and realize that I have to really stop and spend a good bit of time thinking and trying to put it all together." He has been trying to reconcile the many contradictions observed in this election, especially in the two races for New York governor and for Philadelphia senator. He said, "How can you have 70% of the people in Philadelphia say that crime is their #1 issue, but they voted for Fetterman even though he had voted to release murderers and put them back on the streets?" And New York Governor Kathy Hochul apparently defeated Assemblyman Lee Zeldin by 5.8% margin. Gingrich added, of the New York City voters, about 70% voted for the governor even though she had done nothing to stop crime in New York. It doesn't make sense. He wondered why people's attitudes didn't align with the voting patterns. Gingrich also said, "It makes me wonder, what's going on? How are people thinking?" He also said, "I don't fully understand how the American people are sort of rationalizing in their head these different conflicting things, and I think it's going to require some real thought on our part to figure out what to do next." The Democrats' socialist policies have brought about the highest inflation in 40 years. There is a dramatic increase in street and indoor robbery crime. There is a heavy security risk that was caused by the mass of illegal immigrants who entered the U.S., and there has been the breakdown of parenthood with children having sex changes and with promiscuity. All of this is the nightmare of every normal American family. But for many people on welfare, it's a big deal when things are so expensive and welfare might be taken away. So the last week before the elections, Democratic Party officials canvassed around warning voters that if they vote Republican, their social welfare will not be guaranteed. Communism and radical socialism are taking advantage of people's greed and laziness and their self-interest. Communism offers people benefits, but this makes them increasingly degenerate. If the 2020 election didn't make people seriously rethink the current electoral system, then this result is a wake-up slap in their face. Our one-man, one-vote democracy has elected great leaders like Abraham Lincoln, Ronald Reagan, and President Donald Trump, but Hitler was also elected in Germany. So would the U.S. really choose communism and further the degradation? Besides voting for our leaders, is there any other way that we can save America? To save America, we must first restore traditional values. Traditional values and ideas are powerful weapons against communism and radical socialism. And in this regard, we are seeing some good news. It's been a bad week for the Walt Disney Company. First, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who is tough on Disney, won re-election. Then Disney stock fell to new lows. Disney reported earnings for the fiscal quarter a few days ago. Its streaming business lost $1.5 billion in the fiscal quarter. This is a loss that is much greater than what Wall Street analysts had previously expected. Now the entertainment giant is reportedly relying on layoffs, on a hiring freeze, and on restrictions on travel for its employees in order to keep its overhead in check. Several media outlets have seen the internal notice that was issued by Disney CEO Bob Chapek. He announced company-wide cost-cutting measures on Friday, November 11th, and he told division heads that the company may be laying off employees. He wrote, "I am fully aware this will be a difficult process for many of you and your teams. We are going to have to make tough and uncomfortable decisions." A task force that was led by Chief Financial Officer Christine McCarthy and by Chief Counsel Horatio Gutierrez will review marketing, content, and administrative expenses across the company, and they will make recommendations for savings. Chapek also said that in reviewing all of Disney's costs, the company will look at every avenue to find savings, including laying off some employees. But the internal notice did not mention how many employees would be laid off. He said that there will only be a small number of hires for the most critical business-driving positions. Hiring for all other positions will be suspended. Business travel should be limited to necessary travel, and meetings should be conducted by video conference whenever possible. Since caving in to pressure from a small group of radical employees earlier this year, Chapek has denounced Florida's parental rights in education law, and he has pledged that Disney will embrace radical LGBTQ activism in the future. So far this year, shares of Disney are down a whopping 62%. Amazon's stock price has fallen nearly 50% this year. After recently losing its membership in the exclusive club of companies with market capitalization of $1 trillion or more, Amazon has become the world's first publicly traded company to shed $1 trillion in market value. In July of 2021, Amazon's value peaked at just under $1.9 trillion. Last week, the number was below $900 billion. Jeff Bezos' fortune has decreased correspondingly and dramatically. Since the beginning of the year, his fortune has decreased by $83 billion to $109 billion. Amazon recently announced disappointing third quarter earnings results and predicted that upcoming sales for the important holiday shopping season will not be very optimistic. The e-commerce giant has acknowledged that it's unlikely to rebound from strong holiday sales, and it said that it expects its fourth quarter revenue to be well below Wall Street forecasts. The pessimistic outlook comes amid heightened fears of a recession. Many believe that sales will be weak this year as consumers cut back on spending and tighten their budgets with inflation remaining high. The Big Five, which includes Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft, thrived during the pandemic due to a surge in online shopping. They grew earnings by more than 55% in 2021, reaching $1.4 trillion in revenue. However, today's macro environment has completely changed this scenario. Shares of these tech giant companies have plummeted this year amid a general stock market sell-off. According to Bloomberg, the top 5 U.S. technology companies have lost nearly $4 trillion in combined market value by revenue. Amazon has said that it will take measures to tighten its belt by suspending hiring in some departments and by scaling back some products and services. Morgan Stanley Wealth Management Chief Investment Officer Lisa Shallett said that the U.S. stock market has not yet bottomed out. The bottom of the stock market at least needs to reach the peak of inflation and interest rates. The market is just beginning to adjust to corporate performance expectations. Elon Musk sold 20 million shares of Tesla at a low price to raise $4 billion in order to renew Twitter for the sake of saving Twitter. But it's likely that his efforts will be in vain. Some describe Musk's purchase of Twitter as trading $1,500 in caviar for a $2 pizza. Last Thursday, November 10th, Yoel Roth, the Twitter trust and safety executive who was responsible for reviewing reports on Hunter Biden's laptop, resigned. The Associated Press reported that an executive confirmed Roth's resignation to colleagues on Twitter's internal message board. 2 years ago, ahead of the 2020 presidential election, his department prevented users from publicly sharing the New York Post story on Hunter Biden's laptop and from sending a link to the story to others via private message. The day after the midterm elections on November 9th, Roth continued to push Twitter to change its policy on hate speech. He appeared with Elon Musk at a key meeting with advertisers to defend Twitter's policy, but Twitter employees were told on an internal Slack platform last Thursday that Roth was the latest key executive to resign. According to the New York Post, Roth called President Trump's advisors the real Nazis in the White House. Roth also compared Trump's spokeswoman Kellyanne Conway to a Nazi propaganda chief. But Musk defended Roth's past comments about Trump. We reported on this in October. In response to Roth's departure, Emily Horn, a former employee who was in charge of global policy communications at Twitter until 2018, warned that Roth's exit would be a huge loss. Nevertheless, Musk said earlier on November 11th that Twitter has a record number of active users today. Another far-reaching event was the sudden declaration of bankruptcy of the crypto exchange FTX. This event has implications far beyond the financial sphere, with links to the SEC, the Democratic Party, and the war in Ukraine. We'll explain this in more detail on our membership site. It seems there's no company too big to fall. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. If you want more Front Page, please join our membership site for in-depth reports and sensitive news that you cannot see on YouTube. Your donation and your membership subscription are really helping us to continue to tell you the truth. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.